Well, good morning. I actually wasn't sure how many folks would be here today, so it's really great to see all your faces. Sorry I got to do the mask thing, but that's a necessary evil. But it is great to be back on East Carolina's campus today. So I want to kind of do a real quick background on me. You heard a little bit there, but I need to tell you a couple stories of what things that shaped my mind, my life, my career, and then I'll talk to you a little bit more about some specifics on some of the things I want to make sure you glean today. Is that fair enough? As he said, that I was graduated here. Actually, it was actually the School of Business at that point. Just aging myself just a little bit. I just turned 41, and I came to East Carolina as a sophomore. When I graduated, it was basically my junior year. I got involved in SGA, and I kind of figured out where I wanted to go in life and focus on the things that made me happy or I loved. I always loved business, computers, and politics, so I knew that would be something I would end up doing somehow, some way. It's kind of cool that is exactly what I'm doing today, making a living, those three things. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. So I got out of school, went and ran my future mother-in-law's restaurant. Two things, we did that for a couple years. It was a casual dining restaurant, a really great place in downtown Kinston. It's actually no longer there, but two things I will never do again. Can you guess? One is run a restaurant. That is very difficult work. People don't appreciate you. If it's not the truck that's late, it's the employee that's late, or the wine's not chilled. It was always a challenge. If you ever want to get into management, that is a great place to start. But the second thing that I'll never do again is work for my in-laws. Love them to death, but that is just not something I highly recommend for most people. I would do anything for, but that was tough. I was recruited to manage downtown Kinston. Did that for a couple years. That was really neat because I got to learn the civic side of our community from an organizational standpoint. I was already heavily involved in the civic side of Kinston at the time, but I got to understand more of who the mayor was, what the city council did, what a board does, what does a budget do, what does a balance sheet really mean, what does profit and loss statement really mean, how does that impact it in the nonprofit world. So those are things I did for a couple years, as well as trying to recruit businesses to come downtown and redevelop properties. In fact, have you ever heard of a restaurant in Kinston called Chef and the Farmer by chance? That building was acquired while I was the Pride of Kinston director. It was a really neat thing in that the owners need a tax write-off. They had enough money. It was a chance for them to donate it to us, who we were then able to sell it to them for like $1 or whatever. It was 2 years later, the Chef and the Farmer. So it was really neat to be on the beginning side of what ultimately became something that had a major impact on our community and North Carolina, to be exact. Got into sales, did commission-only sales for a decade. You want to learn how to get to talk to business owners and develop relationships and have that B2B experience, go into commission sales. It's something I highly recommend. I think most people should do it, or at least try it. Because one thing that's really important when you're doing commission-only sales is making sure that this meeting I'm having doesn't determine whether or not I eat tonight. Because if that is the case, if that's going to be the meeting that decides whether or not you're able to pay your mortgage that month, then you're going to put too much pressure on yourself and you're going to come across as needy. Does that make sense? And so it really had to work on developing the skill set of everybody was really important. I would talk to. I genuinely want to get to know them. Need to understand what their problems were, so I then could present the solution, which was always my company. Correct? My company was always the solution, but trying to figure out what those challenges they were having, needle them just a little bit, and then helping them overcome that through a product that my company offered. Did that for 10 years. It was a great experience. In the middle of that, I actually ran for mayor at 25 and lost. It's not something that gets talked about a lot, but the first time I ever ran for office, I lost. The fun part was I was expected to lose. The even better part is I came really close to winning. And so what it taught me, I remember getting a phone call from a congressman, in fact, he's still serving in office. His name is G.K. Butterfield. I don't know if he represents this area or not. I can't remember how they've changed the districts, but Representative Butterfield called me, and now, full disclosure, I'm a Republican, and he's a Democrat. Like, he was Congressional Black Caucus chairperson, really good friends with President Obama, and he called me one day, and he said, it was like 2 or 3 days later, and he said, BJ, I just want to let you know that I was really impressed with you, young man. He said that the people who voted for you now are your base, right? If they're willing to support you at 25, then those people are most likely always going to support you. And it was such a profound, I mean, even to this day, I mean, this was 16, 18 years ago, still has a major impact on me today because those are people who were in the trenches with me when I wasn't supposed to win, right? Had a major impact on my life. I've told them that a few times later, how much that conversation meant to me. So I lost at 25. People tried to convince me to run for a city council a couple years. Oh, you should get the experience. I said, no, if I'm ever going to run, I want to be the guy, right? I want to be the person leading. So I ran again at 29 and won. Fun fact about that was 3 people were in that race, 4,000 hundred votes were cast. I won by 51 votes. Absolutely changed my life. I actually paid a consultant to help me figure out how to do it. So instead of just knocking on every door I could possibly do when I did at 25, I only knocked on doors of people who actually voted in a municipal election. Big difference. Think about that. How many people actually voted this year or in the presidential election last year versus how many people are going to vote this year when the mayor's race is up now? It's a huge difference, and just understanding the statistics and the probabilities and who is most likely to vote and then who is most likely to support me, that was how I won that race. So it had a major impact on my life. I ran again 4 years later, served 8 years. I actually lost 4 years ago. I actually lost a race. But the 2 things that happened while I was mayor that had a big impact on me as well. One was Hurricane Irene. I think that was around 2011, I believe. It's when Hurricane Irene came through. It was a big kind of a wind hurricane. It wasn't a lot of rain, wasn't a lot of flooding, but it really just took out a lot of power. I mean, my house was without power for 5 days. We had some people without power for 10 to 15 days. But during that experience, I picked up this little thing called a cell phone. And I went on Facebook because what happens is not a lot of times when you're in leadership position, you're working with 7, 9, and 12 in your local papers, they don't always see what you're doing as being newsworthy, or they're too busy doing something else. So I decided that I needed to have a conversation with the people regardless of what 7, 9, and 12 were doing, regardless of what the Free Press was doing. It didn't matter. I was still going to have a conversation with people, at least let them know what I knew was going on. The cool thing about what happened when I did that was then people would let me know what was happening on the streets in their community. And so then I was able to relay information about real-time things happening. And I did it through social media, through Facebook Lives, et cetera. Imagine a Facebook Live of a mayor or a president in the Emergency Operations Center when everything is happening in real time. That's what I did. And it was kind of neat for people to see the behind the scenes without disclosing sensitive information about what the operations were, what we're actually doing. Does that make sense? You got to be real careful about that too. That's why when you see pictures of like when bin Laden was killed in the raid, you only see like a still image. You don't hear about what's going on in the back in the room, but there's reasons for that. But that was big. And then a few years later, we had another hurricane. Y'all remember a hurricane called Matthew by chance? How many of y'all were impacted by that? I know my community was greatly. So over the years of being forced to get into social media, I learned some of the things you do and don't. When I went live one day, I think in a 24-hour period, I had about 40,000 views on just one Facebook Live I did, sitting at a barricade. I think I did about 20-some interviews with stations from literally around the world just because of the impact it was going to have on our community and what we were doing to prepare for a flood. And so all those years of the business-to-business experience and all those years to develop relationships put me in a position that when my city needed me the most, I was well prepared for that moment. Does that make sense? So that was a lot of fun. But here's one thing I learned. This is where I'm going to kind of transition into the business, is that when I did a kind of a case study of my own of what do businesses need and why people respond to social media, what I realized is that most small businesses haven't made a Facebook post in the last 3 days, or maybe 3 weeks or 3 months, or they haven't engaged with anybody. So they understand you need to have a social media presence, but they don't really have an active presence. They're not intentional about that presence. Does that make sense? It's kind of it's 6 o'clock, I need to make a post today, so let me figure out what today is National Chocolate Ice Cream Day, so let me go do that real quick. There's no real value, there's no plan, there's no structure to it. It is just an by the way kind of a post, and I think that is an absolute worst way to do it. And so when I realized that, I made the decision that I was actually going to change my career completely, start a new business on my own, and that's when Magi Media started in December of 2016. The next year I actually lost the mayor's race. So after I picked up some clients, lost the mayor's race, that next spring, this idea of how do you take social media and apply it to the news world was something I was discussing with some friends, and we started a business called Noose News, and basically the idea is very simple. How many of you hate pop-up ads? Despise them. My thumb's always too big. I'm hitting on the ad, not the X, right? How many of you try to go read a story only to get hit with a paywall, right? Frustrating. So all the things that made me mad about trying to get access to local news, I did the exact opposite. So I made it free. It's on 80-some% of our traffic's on a mobile device, so it's real mobile friendly. There are no AP news because guess what? If you need to find out what's happening with President Biden today or what happened at 9/11 services, every national news outlet was covering it. But what about little Johnny who just hit a grand slam after he just recovered from cancer surgery at age 11, right? You don't get those kind of stories in the national news. You get them in your local news. And so those are the things we focused on, the little things, the hyper-local things in our backyard. So we grew really quickly, and today we've got close to 5,000 subscribers, which is 2.5 times our local print product in our community. We don't have the same revenue, but I'm going to win the long game because we're free, and we're putting out quality content every single day. In fact, to be real specific, we put out between 3 and 12 pieces of content a day. And if you multiply that, those are just the stories. If you multiply that by the newsletter, the website, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, 6 times every single one of those stories gets posted across all those platforms. We've done that every day for 3 years. And it's free, completely free. How you treat others and the motivation that drives you. In other words, what is your intent? That's the way I look at ethics. What is your intent behind this decision, behind this person you're hiring? What is your intent? What is the purpose behind it? So one thing that I really like to think about, and I talk to our team about this a lot, is that the more money our company makes, the more I'm going to share that with our employees. I'm going to go a little bit more about that here. So kind of one of the philosophies that drives how I started our business and how we've grown so much is I really look at the employees more as a team. So it's less about managing people and more about inspiring others to make decisions, right? And go all in on what makes them happy. And I maybe I'm wrong on that philosophy. It's worked for me, and I think it's led to a more productive and happier lifestyle. So COVID hit last year. Our revenues were the exact same as the year before. Now, would you say that's a good thing or a bad thing? Good. I was tickled to death. The fact that I didn't have to cut anybody and our revenues were the exact same. And guess what happened this year? So far this year, we're up 40%. So there's 3 fundamentals to transition an idea to profit. The first one I'm going to talk about is treat people fairly and like family. Work hard and let go of fearing failure. And the third one is to solve more problems by empowering others to make decisions. So the first one is treat people fairly and like family. So when we make more money, I reward the whole team. Right? Like, I'm not worried about my bonus or anything like that. I want to make sure that everybody else is taken care of. So I'm really big on making sure that the people who work with me are excited about coming to work. One way I do that is, and it's intentional, but it's very genuine, is I am genuinely concerned about, and you heard this from our keynote this morning, about the mental health status of my team, right? Are you happy? If you're genuinely concerned about people's happiness, then one, you're going to have a better culture, right? People are going to be more excited about coming to work. And also, the really cool thing from the actual business, the black and white side of business, your team will be more productive as well. Wouldn't you agree with that statement? That's exactly what happens. Because I'm focused on their happiness, not pacifying, not placating. You know, there is a business. We make business decisions. But I am genuinely concerned about whether or not they're happy, because if they're not, I need to find a way to help them, even if it has nothing to do with business. I have 2 people that work for me in the past 2 years. Both were not in great relationships, both of them females, and over a period of time through these conversations, these one-on-one conversations, both of them were able to empower themselves and make some really tough decisions, and they're both living happier lives today because of it. And guess what happens? Because I was so invested in helping them achieve a certain goal without interfering, right? Without getting in there and making a phone call or going knock on somebody's door. No, I just mean about the emotional support of why that was so important to them. that both of them are now making more money today. They both are more happy today. You can ask them, and I promise that's what would happen. So it's really, to me, that's really important in the workplace. But I will tell you an example where I messed up, and I did this fairly recently. A couple girls, they actually, one's come to ECU now, and the other one went to App State. Worked with me for the last 2 or 3 years, and I had a client coming from Davidson County. Anybody from the Lexington area? Davidson County, and they were coming into town. They were spending the night, hang out at Mother Earth, Motor Lodge, go to a baseball game with us at the Wood Ducks, and all those kind of things. Oh, by the way, while I was mayor, we lost our baseball team, and then we landed the Texas Rangers, which was really cool. Going to sit in the Texas Rangers box. Oh gosh, yeah, there's some fun stories. I had a great time. But so I had this client coming from out of town. Well, I had my entire team hang out with our client. Got the box. We had dinner and all that stuff. I paid for everything. But there was 2 people on my team I didn't let come. And I made the assumption that they understood why. I mean, they were going to college in like 2 weeks. So why would I invest all this extra money in this outing, this team outing, when they were leaving us, right? Because this client was going to be here. This was a big deal to us. And I didn't figure this out until the day before they were leaving. And I felt so bad. And the reason why, how I messed up is that I was not intentional about taking the hour, 30 minutes or so, and just pulling them aside, hey, how are things going? But once they understood the business decision of why I needed to let this person bring a boyfriend, right? Because she was that important, I wanted to make sure that the boyfriend came. It wasn't about you not being involved in the team, because I made up for it. We did 2 big bashes the week they left. But I had to make it a business decision, and I failed to recognize that my decision to not let them do something or go somewhere actually affected their performance, and I felt guilty about it, and I apologized to both of them. The second thing I want to mention was work hard, let go of fearing failure. I am curious, so I can get a lay of the room, how many of y'all are wanting or already doing your own business, wanting to start your own business? Okay, and that's fine. There's no wrong answer here. This may be a little bit more specifically geared towards you just for a second, but I think it can apply to everybody here in the room. And that is, you can never expect a team member to work harder or to care more about your business than you. You never can expect them to do that. The day you try to impose your will that they should care about this business as much as you do, is the day that person is probably going to leave you. Because you can never expect them to do that. Yes, you have your own family things, your own financial things, your own goals and dreams, but guess what? So do they. If this is your business, you cannot let someone outwork you. I work hard. I'm up all hours of the day and night. I might get to work at 8:15 or so because I dropped off a kid to school. I might leave at 4 o'clock to go do something, but at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, it's still on me. At 12 o'clock, when it's payday, it's still on me. Does that make sense? I'm always carrying that burden of the business. They will never outwork me. But I've also hired people who are smarter than me to do jobs as well, and also things that I don't want to do or shouldn't do, and it's something that I'm going to mention here in a second. The second thing is be willing to take calculated risk. I went to Busch Gardens this weekend. First time I've been to Busch Gardens in a couple decades. It was a girls' trip, and I talked myself into going and taking my youngest daughter, who's 9, and got on one of those first time she ever got on a big roller coaster. She was scared to death. She hated it, but it was great, and she talked about how big a girl she was. So we had a great time. But you know how many roller coasters I rode this weekend? 1. And when I was in your seat, I rode them all, like 5 times each. I mean, I was the guy getting off the ride and running around and get back in the front of the line. But I realized the older I've gotten, I've calculated the risk, and I've said, that's not for me. I care more about my stomach this afternoon. You know, it's everybody's best interest for me not to go on the teacups. I sent my daughter to do the teacup ride by herself, right? Because I know that how my body responds to that wouldn't be good for her or for me or anything else. And so for me, that was taking a calculated risk of mitigating my risk by not doing some things. But you know the cool thing about being a parent? I've got 2 girls, 9 and 13. The cool thing about being a parent is I had just as much joy watching my little girl with her feet dangling, going 100 feet down just like that. And watching her go through that and experiencing that thrill, the scariness of it, and then getting off the ride, I had such a joy watching that as a parent. It's really hard to explain. But in business, there's a limited amount of money, and you've got to make very difficult decisions at times. And one thing I want to make sure you understand is I think the only way you can progress and move forward and grow is by taking a risk every once in a while, whether that is hiring one extra person in what you need, or whether that is actually firing a client like I did this past week, right? That's a tough call. I've got employees to pay, and I just fired a client that was paying us close to $2,000 a month. I said, I can't do this anymore. It's not worth my mental health. The last thing I want to mention, then I'll go into a few other bullet points, and you got me, Robert, right? Is to solve problems by empowering others to make decisions. I really cannot stress this enough. In fact, as I was discussing this talk with my team the other day, we kind of huddled up and I said, hey, look, I'm talking to ECU on Monday. Here's where my head is. Here's what I submitted. I just want to kind of get an idea of what y'all think. What I realized is that once I got quiet and I let my team kind of give their input, I looked at them at the end of it and I said, why don't y'all just come with me? And once they introduce me, I'll introduce y'all, and then I'll sit down. And the reason is because they know our business so well. They know the philosophies so well of how I think about social media, how I think about business, how they do their jobs. But that the truth is, I've taught them enough and I've poured enough of me into them that they actually could give this entire talk today. And when I made that statement, they all laughed and said, yep, we could. We don't want to. They hate public speaking. But they honest to goodness could do that because of how close-knit our group really is and how much I really trust them. But the last few things I want to end with you, and then I'll take some questions, are basically 4 philosophies that have really driven how I go about my business. The first one I really can't stress enough either, and that is trust is greater than skill. I mean that I would much rather hire somebody that I trust who knows nothing about how to make a Canva graphic, who knows nothing about YouTube, knows nothing about TikTok, who knows nothing about the business side of social media. Because a lot of you grew up on Snapchat, right? You grew up on snapping friends and taking selfies and all that stuff. But applying that to the business world is a completely different game. It's a different mindset. It's a different philosophy. I need those skills, right? But I need somebody I can trust more than that has that skill. So that's really important to me when I'm hiring folks. Like the last person I hired, I don't know how she felt about it, but I did it anyway, is that when she came in to interview, it wasn't in a separate room. Like my office is laid out that you walk in, you got Aletha's back to us, I'm facing Aletha. So Aletha is literally where we're sitting just like this. We're sitting this far apart where we can see each other. The next person in my office, Christy's sitting right here. I can touch her if I need to. The Norma Jean's on the other side of her table. Behind me sits Danny and a couple of our digital media specialists. So everybody in my office is literally within 20 feet of each other. It's kind of like a little Google workplace. It's a lot of fun. So guess what? When she came to interview, I sat her right in the middle of the room. I led the interview, but the whole team participated in it. You know why that's important to me? Because the culture of my business is really important. Because people being happy and making sure that this person could bring, just like the speaker said, some diverse opinions and thoughts to the business, correct? But also that I need to make sure that the culture is going to continue to thrive, that this person is going to add value to this culture, not take away by being very negative. Does that make sense? I've had negative people in our business, and I'll tell you some of the 2 best days I've had are when I got rid of those negative people in our community, in our business, people not willing to do the extra thing, always doubting something. Those are people I don't want involved in the business. The second one is relationships are greater than money. If anything I can stress to you today as you go through this networking experience is to network with the speakers, network with the faculty and staff here, network with each other because you don't know where you're going to be 10 years or 20 years from now, and you don't know how those relationships will matter. There was a gentleman, I don't know if he's still in the room, Jim Westmoreland, he just stepped out, I guess. He had a big impact on me when I was here at East Carolina. He's since retired. I was really happy to see him here today. And when I was sworn in as mayor, he was there. Like, relationships are greater than money. I didn't really understand this until about 5-10 years ago. I was always about go to A to B. If I had to go to see a client at the beach, I went straight to the client and went straight back home. And then one day my city clerk called. She said, well, did you check out that little spot? And I said, what do you mean, Monique? She's like, did you stop? No, we'll get back to the office. She said, you need to smell the roses every once in a while, BJ. She was right. What she was trying to tell me is that it's not always about the A to B, the money side of things. That you do have to take time to do the other things. You become a more well-rounded person. The relationships that you develop here, the relationships you develop in your first or second or third job, could be very well the thing that changes your life forever. The third one is doers are greater than complainers. If you're going to complain, I don't want you. I want people who are proactive. I want people who are going to do something, who are going to take the ball. I want somebody bringing me ideas, not me imposing my will on them. Does that make sense? I want to hear what you've got to say. I want to hear how if I got one of our first clients, he's still with us, his name is Jim Capps, he's in Doers, it's a trailer business. I want to hear how we can convince Jim to do a TikTok, right? A silly dance. Like, I got to convince Jim that, hey, this is a good idea for your business, right? How do we do that? And I promise you it has. Jim's business, since we've been with him, is up well over 100% in the last 4 years. He's done amazing things, but he also works hard, and he's not a complainer. He's willing to listen to somebody who knows what they're talking about. The last one is to master the mundane. If you want to be successful in making money, I've already talked about the ethics and about hiring people and being happy. I want you to consider about mastering the mundane. When you get out of this university, you think you're going to make 120 grand your first year. I'm going to tell you you're crazy. That you've got to work your way up there. And the way you do that is to master the basic things. It's side to side. Anybody ever watched the movie Hitch? Remember the movie Hitch got Will Smith in it? Remember Kevin James? He was this guy who should have never gotten the hot blonde, like he was a big burly guy and he should have never gotten the girl of his dreams, right? But he had an opportunity to take her out dancing, right? Y'all remember this? If you watched it, he had an opportunity to take her out dancing and Will Smith would go, oh, that's great, that's awesome. And he goes, hold on a second. Can you show me some of those moves you plan on sharing? And so he started doing this pizza thing, and he was going to do this Q-tip thing. And Will Smith, he was the love doctor. He just stood there and he was like, He said, this is what I want you to do. And he just said, just go side to side, right? He said, because if you can master this, you can get to other stuff later. But right now, this is what you got to do, right? And that's the way I think about business. Before we take that big leap, before I ever got on TikTok, I watched and I studied and I thought about it. And I said, well, from a business perspective, this is how we can apply it to our clients. I had a TikTok 2 weeks ago, it's got close to 400,000 views on it. You know what's really special about it? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was silly. I was in the coffee shop, Danny happened to be with us, and I realized at that moment that I forgot my daughter who was at the office because she had a close contact with COVID, and the policy, she tested negative, but the policy was she has to be out of school for a few days. And I realized that I left my daughter at the office, a block and a half. I had an employee there, but it was just the moment caught on camera. And it was silly and it was funny. But my point is, when I think about our business, we're in the attention business, not the news or the advertising or sales business. If I can get your attention right here, then I can sell you something. If I can get your attention and you like, know, and trust me, then you might shoot me an email or send me a connect, right? And maybe there's some way I can help you along the way. Does that make sense? And so that's what it was about. It's not about making money on TikTok. I could care less. If you go to my website, it's bjmurphy360.com, I don't sell anything there. I'm not the guy that's trying to sell books or t-shirts or stuff. In fact, if you go there, you see about 90 episodes of what we're doing here, which is the journey, which is a vlog of everything that happens in our business. You know why I'm doing that? It's because I want my great-great-grandkids to know who I was. I know that's very vain, but you know what? My grandfather was a Baptist minister, and he preached 15 years. He had 12 kids. 12. My dad being the youngest one of them. You know how many audio tapes I have of him? How many of his sermons I got to listen to? Not a one. He died 10 years before I was born. I might be the central character, but if you ever go back and look at any of those vlogs that we do, you'll notice that my team is heavily involved. And some of them I'm not even in. Final thought I'll leave with you. I'll take some questions. Whatever it is that makes you happy, whatever it is you're good at, I want you to go all in on that. I know in school, sometimes you're taught, if you got a 79 in science and a 93 in business, that the best thing for your GPA is to take that 79 and make it an 85, right? Versus taking the 90 and trying to make it a 97. And I'm going to tell you to go all in on the latter one, the one that's going to make you happy, the one that you're good at. I'd much rather you spend, certainly you need to understand what your weaknesses are. You need to understand your SWOT analysis of you and your business. You've got to understand all that. But if I could tell you to go all in on something, for me, business, computers, and politics. I own a digital communications firm that has a hyperlocal digital news publication, multiple monthly retained social media clients, and we've helped another company in Lexington start a similar news.com there. It's called davidsonlocal.com. I've gone all in on things that make me happy, and guess what? My entire team wins for it. And I've given our community something that's free to them so that they can consume and be more proactive and better citizens. Does that make sense? Go all in on what makes you happy, and I promise you'll live a more productive life, and you'll empower the people around you better. Did I get on time? On time. So with that, we've got just a few minutes. I knew I had 45 minutes. The truth is, you asked me one question, I could talk for another hour. I'm not going to do that to you. I know better. But if you have a question, or if you got a thought or an idea, feel free. I'd love to hear from somebody. Yes?
So you own your own business.
Yes.
And you also have a family.
Mm-hmm.
Surely that means that you have to work a lot of hours every week, but you also must dedicate time to your family because they are important to you.
Correct.
How do you go about balancing this work and home life?
It's great. It's a great question. If you didn't hear it, the question in essence is, how do you balance work and home life? And I will tell you, if you follow people on social media and these social media gurus, you see the private jet planes and the cash dropping from, briefcases and stuff. That is a farce. That is not what real life is about. Real life is deciding that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a phone call from Banks Elementary School. I got to pick up my daughter because she had a close contact. So who's going to do that? My wife's a school teacher. She can't leave her autistic kids there by herself, right? So I got to go do that. So how I balance it is my family always comes first, always. In fact, the reason I do business is because of that. So my family always comes first. The kids, they always come first. But that also comes at a sacrifice in that I work a lot. I work hard, but I also take time to enjoy life and the fruits of those labors. So I think what you see on social media a lot is not reality. But it also comes with responsibility. When you're a business owner, I got to pay the bills. I got to pay Danny. I got to pay me. I got to put food on the table. I got to provide a service to our community. But my family's going to come first.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned about your philosophy that if your company does well, you're going to pass that money on to your employees. Do you have an actual profit sharing program at your company, or do you just kind of give out bonuses when you?
That's a great question. The question was, when I mentioned about making more money, that I would kind of share that with the team. There is not I don't have an employee handbook yet. So, we're still such a startup that, it was just 6 months ago that I actually created a sheet that says, here are all the paid holidays for people working 32 hours or more a week. I just did that. I've talked about the next step of how do we do the insurance side of the benefits for our company, but we're still so small that's a challenge for somebody like me. So there's not a profit sharing agreement. It is just understood that as we grow, my team's going to benefit from that. And I had these sit downs with them. In fact, actually, Danny and I were talking about that on the way here. I want to sit down with him. I got to get through having just fired a client. I got to get over that hurdle. But once we're able to recoup that, he and I are going to sit down and have that conversation as well. So for me, it's not set in stone. For larger companies, those kind of things are set in stone. Should be. Another question? Yes.
So trust is so important. How do you go about assessing whether somebody's trustworthy?
It's a great question. How do you go about assessing whether or not somebody is trustworthy? I think it has a lot to do with the number of tasks that I assign people. Even though I don't know how Danny goes about doing some of the really cool video edits, if you go look at some of our journey videos or podcasts and things, you'll see what I'm talking about. But I know enough about video editing to know whether or not he's doing a good job. I know enough about his job to know whether or not he's stealing hours, putting hours down that he didn't work. I know enough about each person's job to understand what the task is, how they should complete it. But then I just focus on the task that only I should be doing. So trust comes in a lot of ways. I will tell you that as a small business owner, I've told this to a new employee recently. She was like, "You're always buying us coffee or buying us lunch." And I said, "Yeah, you know, I'm always going to buy the lunch. My team goes to lunch. If I'm with you, I'm paying. It is rare that I'm out to lunch with my team and we do a Dutch thing." So that that small act in and of itself creates such a culture of we love each other, we trust each other, this is a team, this is who we are, this is what we do, that guess what? When somebody attacks me, my team is fierce in their defense. The same is also true. If somebody attacks a story that one of my writers wrote and questions integrity, I am all in on jumping down your throat. I will let the world know. Don't look, I had a city council member, I don't know, Brandon, if you saw this, I had a city council member a month ago. He called us the News Insurgency. You know what we did? We filed a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, for a meeting that they held off-site that was only done via audio, no video, where they honest to goodness, tried to raise the taxes, give the employees no raises, and pay themselves more money. They voted on it that meeting. We disclosed that to the world. He called us the News Insurgency. You know what I did immediately as soon as I heard it? I went on Facebook Live. I can't tell you how many people watched it. The city council meeting still behind me on the screen. I went on Facebook Live and I said, "Can you believe this is what just happened?" And within 3 days, I had 100 shirts with the News Insurgency logo on it. We sold like 80 of them just like that, because it was like people were attacking us for doing the community a service, right? And because of that, the loyalty around that is how our business has thrived. This is great. I love being back at East Carolina. If you want to network, you can. My email is bj@magicmile, not Magic Mike, magicmilemedia.com. As I said earlier, we connect on LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, all that stuff. It's BJ Murphy 360. You shoot me an email or text or Instagram. I'll be happy to reach back out. I've connected with a lot of ECU students. In fact, actually, one was in the SG office right above us just a while ago. It was one of my former interns. And I'll be happy to help you any way I can. All right? Thank y'all so much. Enjoy the rest of your conference. Appreciate it.